Clarence M. Risser was born on October 21st, 1921 in Mastersonville, Pennsylvania. Mr. Risser was born to parents Clarence Baker Risser and Mary Catherine Shank Risser. Apart from his parents, Corporal Risser's family also consisted of his sister and brother, John and Anna. Mr. Risser's brother grew up to be a veterinarian, and his sister married a plumber that contracted heating. Before Mr. Risser was drafted, he worked at a soda fountain at a restaurant called Risser's Sweet Spot and ventured around the United States. Wanting to see the world, Corporal Risser traveled to Missouri, Illinois, and along the Mississippi River. He hitched a ride to Chicago eventually and found himself working as a busboy in a local Chicago restaurant. Corporal Risser was working at a shipyard in Seattle, Washington when he received his draft letter in 1943.
Taking nothing but himself and a few bags, Mr. Risser found his way to Battle Creek, Mississippi, where he would guard prisoners of war. Corporal Risser often found himself becoming bored with his job, and would force himself to stay awake for the duration of his time slot. He was then transferred to take training in combat engineering, and he had completed his time serving as a guard of prisoners. Mr. Risser's primary work there was to build bridges quickly in case of opposing forces threatening the United States. However, like his job in Battle Creek, Mr. Risser's stay was short-lived. Subsequently, Corporal Risser was relocated to take basic in England. His orientation in England was very similar to combat engineering training Mr. Risser had already received due to the fact that Corporal Risser would build bridges and then test them for sustainability by driving various vehicles over them. In 24 hours, a new bridge would be constructed, tested, and then destroyed, only to repeat the process the next day.
Basic training was repetitive for Corporal Risser, yet he could not complain because it was a time of war. Mr. Risser was a T5 technical corporal. T5 was a rank in the U.S. Army and Army Air Force in World War II that stood for Sec 5. This rank was equal to a corporal in pay but lacked the command of a corporal. The rank on the uniform was corporal stripes with a T under them. He was the junior of the NCO ratings. His food was more than fulfilling for his hunger, consisting of all different food groups that Mr. Risser would have to stand in line to obtain. His meals were served in large quantities of cheap vegetables, meats, and fruits. Corporal Risser lived in a dormitory that consisted of countless rows of bunk beds. The beds I slept in were small and normally uncomfortable. Although not exactly preferable, the living spaces were sufficient. Unfortunately, mosquitoes were very populous where Corporal Risser was staying. Early in the morning, generals and people of higher rank would come and wake up the men in Mr. Risser's dormitory to tell them to put on their nets to protect them from the bites of the mosquitoes.
Mr. Risser's specialty training was centered around technical occurrences and infantry. The sergeant who trained the men would show Corporal Risser and his comrades how to shoot their rifles and perform drills concerning the holding and handling of weapons during the war. If a rifle was missing, the person who had ownership of the missing weapon would be given a white flag. Luckily, Corporal Risser was very responsible with his weapon and never received a white flag. Albeit, some of Mr. Risser's friends struggled with shooting and performing weaponry tests. Corporal Risser quickly found himself catching on to his skills. It was not uncommon for Mr. Risser to shoot bullseyes.
The Philippines was a very popular area of service during the Second World War, and when Corporal Risser had completed specialty training, his team was ordered to be stationed in the islands. His crew and himself boarded a luxury liner from Marseille, France. They traveled to the Panama Canal, stopping at the Hawaiian Islands when they reached the Pacific Ocean. The trip took about 2 weeks. At that point in time, Truman had just dropped 2 bombs on cities in Japan, causing Japan to surrender. Corporal Risser was prone to acquiring a jungle disease that would erupt sores all over his skin. Treatments for this illness was extremely limited during the time of war, owing to the fact that medical equipment at this time was scarce and was not nearly as complex as it is nowadays. There were multifarious jobs for the men to be assigned to at the new camp of the Philippines. Corporal Risser was assigned to be a truck driver who drove a brand new vehicle to the shipyard and picked up lumber to take to different places. His job was vital to the Army. It was the only way to obtain the supplies the veterans needed to be able to complete the necessary tasks. Corporal Risser also built homes for people who had lost theirs because of the war. When the officers and people who led him saw how great his work was, they awarded him a Good Conduct Medal. Mr. Risser was specially picked to obtain the award. It is received if a soldier is selected to obtain the award because they exhibited the actions of their fellow soldiers.
Corporal Risser witnessed his first and only casualty in the Philippines.
My friend Rosar, he was 18 years old and he went on an advanced detail, and when we came to the camp he was dead. Him and another guy, this wasn't in action, this was just leisure time that you do whatever you want, and he was walking along the road and they said, he's not here no more. And the other fellows, he said, there was a bomb laying on the bank of the road. He said, I'm going over and check it out. And he did, and he got blown to pieces. That was the saddest part. He was not in the next bunk with me. His name was Rosar, I'll never forget that. My friend Rosar, he was 18 years old and he went on an advanced detail, and when we came to the camp he was dead. Him and another guy, this wasn't in action, this was just leisure time that you do whatever you want, and he was walking along the road and they said, he's not here no more. And the other fellows, he said, there was a bomb laying on the bank of the road. He said, I'm going over and check it out. And he did, and he got blown to pieces. That was the saddest part. He was not in the next bunk with me. His name was Rosar, I'll never forget that.
Mr. Risser only received one furlough during his service to return home to visit his family. Apart from his short time of contact with his family, he received chocolates, cookies, and other items from his relatives. However, most times the cookies and chocolates Corporal Risser would receive only lasted a mere day, when his fellow veterans would devour his treats. He did not receive very many letters, only edible and keepsake items. Mr. Risser's relatives at home were waiting for the day that he would return to them.
After completing 3 years of service, Corporal Risser was discharged from the United States Army. He took a few of his bags and was taken to San Francisco, California. He then found his way home to Pennsylvania. Mr. Risser quickly resumed his job of working for his father at his restaurant. His job at the Risser Sweet Spot made Corporal Risser $15 a week. He also worked at the Hershey factory and acquired an ice route his parents requested for him. Corporal Risser worked his ice route for 3 years and then became a laborer in different places. His jobs ranged from electric lines, trimming, shrubbery work, and landscaping. In 1950, he discovered the career he would work for the rest of his life, bricklaying.
Mr. Risser's life after the war was fairly similar to his life before the war. He kept in touch with the friends he had made during his service and attended the reunions the Army would hold. He also became part of the American Legion. Corporal Risser learned numerous lessons from the war that would help him in his daily life. For example, he learned to march and listen to commands without questioning the generals. Mr. Risser learned how to organize and keep his assets tidy. He learned to respect others and become erudite in the area of interacting with other people. The skills he learned from World War II helped Corporal Risser years after his service with daily tasks and jobs. Thank you for defending our country during World War II by building bridges, guarding prisoners, and building homes.